Good afternoon, Patriots. This is the American Vision, broadcast on the TLBTV network and brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Bill Muckler, and I'm coming to you from my home studio in Cocoa, Florida. And today I have a very accomplished guest, and I'm Faye Higbee, and I'm going to try and introduce Faye and do proper justice. She holds 2 degrees in criminal justice. She's retired from the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Support Services Division. She's a pastor of Raven Ministries in Post Falls, Idaho, which is adjacent to Coeur d'Alene. And she's currently the president of the Coeur d'Alene chapter of the Idaho Writers League. She's on the executive boards of 3 ministries. She's an author of both Christian and secular books and articles. She's on the board of Bitterroot Mountain Publishing House, and she's also, the way I found Faye, and to my good fortune is I'm a subscriber to a Marine veteran-owned company called Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. And if you've heard of that or you read the articles, Faye is the person who writes the articles and edits and everything for Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, or if you want to abbreviate, USMC, just like I have on my shirt. So anyway, Faye, welcome to the show. And if I left anything out, it was just because I'm trying to find everything I can.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. So you're from Post Falls, or you're coming to us from Post Falls, Idaho, and tell us where you grew up and where you went to school, and how did you get involved in criminology and the Coeur d'Alene police force?
I grew up in Post Falls, Idaho, graduated from Post Falls High School. And when I was a really young child, my father had the Coeur d'Alene Rifle and Pistol Club meeting in our shop out on the river. And they only met there during the 50s, and then they moved to a different place. But I grew up with police officers and FBI agents and all sorts of shooting enthusiasts in that shop. And I policed the brass. I was so excited to do that. So I sort of grew up with those people around us, around my house. So I was really excited to join.
Well, that's really something. And and you've actually lived in Post Falls all your life then?
Yes, except for a few times when I lived in Coeur d'Alene, but yes.
Mm-hmm. And where did you go to school that you got your degrees in criminology?
The first one was an associate degree from North Idaho College. The second one was from Lewis Clark State College. They have a satellite campus in Coeur d'Alene. In Coeur d'Alene.
And for all the viewers, I'm a kind of a resident of Coeur d'Alene. I worked there and lived there and worked there for 8 months back in a long time ago when I worked as a consultant for the Bunker Hill Mining Company in Kellogg, Idaho, and Faye said she's even heard of that, and knows some people that work there. So what got you into writing? You're on the Coeur d'Alene police force, and you have a degree in criminology, and yet you're a very good writer.
I love writing. I've been writing since I was in high school. I used to write a lot of poetry and things like that, but then in 1990, I got my first article published, and I was so excited that I just decided that's what I needed to do from now on, is write more. So by the time I retired in 2004, I started writing books and articles and things like that. I love writing. You can't take the pen away from my hand.
Well, you're very good at it, and I want to tell you, the articles that I've read that you've written are just fantastic. I'm really in awe of your talent and your skill at writing, and I should be, because I'm the guy who almost flunked English at Mizzou because I knew grammar and spelling and all that good stuff, but I couldn't I could never write anything creative because I never could think of a subject to write about, and everything was always a disaster. So I don't know how I got into this either. In fact, some of my college friends said, "We didn't even know you even knew how to read, or you ever read a book before." And I'm saying, "No, I've been reading all my life. I guess I was a closet reader or something like that."
That's good. I'm glad you were reading. It's important for people to read.
Yeah, and nowadays people don't even, I wonder if people, the younger people even know how to open a book or turn a page. They're so used to doing it, on the phone or the Kindle or something like that. But
and the problem is they don't know what books they're actually supposed to look at.
yeah, that's true too. So you mentioned you love poetry and you write poetry, and I've got an image here, and this is tell us about this book, because I believe this book is a book of poetry, or somewhat of poetry, and I have to confess I have not had the opportunity to read this yet.
That's okay. That is a devotional that my girlfriend and I put together. I'm the one that actually wrote it, but I put her name on it because she did write some of the original things. It is some of the things I wrote for a group called PraiseNet, and it's a international prayer network. And I wrote some of the devotionals in it just to encourage people to hang in there, whatever was going on in their lives. So that's what that's from. It's from them.
Well, also, you're talking, I think I mentioned before, you're the pastor of Raven Ministries in Post Falls. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a very, 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 very tiny house church in Post Falls, Idaho. We don't have a lot of people most of the time, but it's fellowship with people that you can trust, people that are not going to shoot you when you're having a service. We always have communion. I play the piano. We all sing, and it's very pleasant. It's not a politically motivated group. We just get together and we worship, and it's very, very pleasant.
You've got me very interested and hooked on this too, because one of the things I've always talked about when I wrote my book, and I'm writing my second book, is I always believed that the best thing for Americans was to have a small, limited government that's close to home. Absolutely. And I think the same way for everything that we do. And so if you can have a small ministry and a small church where you have a group of people that interact together, it sounds like a very wonderful ministry that you have.
We call ourselves Heart Friends. And the reason is, when you go to a big, giant, mega church, you can't trust everybody in that room. You should be able to, but you can't, because some of them are going to backstab you. Some of them are political climbers that want to get over the top of you. But we're so small, there's no place to go. I mean, there's no political ladder for them to climb. So it's either be our friend and love the Lord and love one another, or there's no room for you there.
I know, and we go to church every week, and we're involved in some of the church activities, but there's so many people there. I recognize some people, but I have no idea who they are, what their names are, or what they do, or anything about them. And I really find it just so heartwarming to be able to get to know people and know what they like and what they love and what their family is about and their background, because that way we can really relate to people. And the better we can relate to people, it seems like we're much better off as a society.
Yes, absolutely. Friendship has seemingly disappeared in America. It's like the Marine Corps, always faithful. It's a brotherhood of people that they have to have each other's back. But in society right now, you don't have that. And it's very damaging. You need the brotherhood, you need the fellowship, you need the camaraderie. It's something that's very important.
So speaking of the Marine Corps, and I don't want to really get ahead of myself, but how did you get started with Rick Ferron and the Uncle Sam's Misguided Children?
That's a mystery. Somebody, a friend of mine at the time, called me up and said, why don't you come and write for us? And I thought he was just being a pain in the butt, you know. And the next thing I knew, I was on the internet and talking to Tank, which is Rick Ferron, and they invited me to come and write for them. And that was almost 6 years ago.
Well, I guess I didn't even realize that Uncle Sam's Misguided Children had been around that long, but maybe it has. Time flies. I know when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's really clever. USMC, I gotta get to know that, and I joined up right away because it doesn't cost any money. You just click on the links and on Facebook, I think it was, and then subscribe. It leads you to a place to subscribe.
Yeah, that's it.
And
yeah, I've actually been there since 2009. But
9 years. So you've written a lot of articles, and your articles are really excellent. How do you get the ideas? Or you just write anything you want to write that you think is topical, or?
Well, I can interview a lot of people on occasion. I'm very blessed to get to interview some very famous people on occasion. Some important veterans that are doing some great work for veterans. And I enjoy hunting for those, and Tank sends me information on that sort of thing. But then I also peruse all the news articles and try to find one that grabs me. If it doesn't grab me, I'll just pass it off. Don't ask me to do an economic article, because I don't want to. But yeah, and sometimes there's one mentioned in one of my books about a young man who came home from Afghanistan, and within a few months he had killed himself. And I'd been corresponding with him the whole time. It broke my heart in about 1 million pieces. So that's sort of in my heart a lot. You know, I really care about my veterans.
Yeah, and it's obvious from what you do. And I've had the good fortune to interview veterans and Marines and other vets, and they've been involved in some sort of a project or cause to help prevent veteran suicides and to identify PTSD and help people with it and so forth. So, it's just really great for me. I just love doing it because I'm hoping that, you know, maybe what we do, we can maybe save 1 or 2 or 3 from this horrible thing that's happening in America today, and it's happening to our vets who gave us so much.
Amen. If you can save 1, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No question about it. Okay. Here's a book you wrote. Maybe you can tell us about this. And I love the background here, but I have to confess I got this off of Amazon, and it's portrait, but my screen is landscape, so you can't really see the entire book cover. But I feel like I'm someplace where I really, really like being.
Well, the book cover on my new one, that's the second edition of this book, is out in the woods here by my home. And it's got my dog on it, and it's called The Dog Paw Chronicles 2 Life Journeys. It's a memoir about me and my life and the dogs that have been with me through the whole thing.
Okay, now if I sit over here, I think we can see a little bit more of the book cover. So this is no wonder I like it so much. This is part of northern Idaho that I really loved when I was there. So
Yeah.
You're blessed to live in God's country.
Amen. That's right.
So this book is more of an autobiography, and it's in its second edition, and people can buy it paperback and also ebook for Kindle. But tell us a little bit about the book and why you wanted to write it.
Because I use my dog as a muse. I don't know if you know what a muse is, but anyway, it's I let my dog make comments on my life throughout the book. For example, I was born as a blue baby. My mother had the RH factor that messed up the pregnancy, and they said I was going to be a vegetable. The doctors all said, you got to put her in an institution, she's going to be a vegetable. Well, I don't think I'm a vegetable. They said I would not live past my 17th birthday and 65. I don't think they were right, but there's just a lot of comments that my dog makes, quote unquote, throughout the book. And I went to Europe in my high school years, got to see Behind the Iron Curtain, which is something that I wish young people could see now, because they've grown up without it and don't know what it's like behind the Iron Curtain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason I wanted to write those things, because there are lessons out of my life that apply to everybody else's life. And the dog commenting on those things helps people kind of go, oh, is that how I'm supposed to be? Yeah. Through my mistakes, I'm hoping it helps them.
Mm. Yeah, that's really clever. It's really unique, because I can't think of any books that I've ever read where it's an autobiography, but it's really you tell it through the eyes of your pet, your dog.
Well, I'm telling it through my eyes, through the short stories that are in it.
Mm-hmm.
But the dog has something to say about it. He was a pretty smart dog.
He has a great perspective, doesn't he?
That's right. That's right. And he was a rescue from a shelter, so he knew what that was like. And so it was the way it is.
Oh, well, tell us more. And the dog's name is?
The dog's name was Red Dog. Red. So Red Dog made all sorts of nice comments. If he didn't like something, there's one story in there, my mother kept telling me there were crocodiles in the river. There really weren't crocodiles in the river, and I knew that, but I had an incident that day that caused some problems, and the dog comments at the bottom, your mother was right, there are crocodiles. So it's like, he entertains with these little gems that get thrown into each story. So it's fun.
Yeah. So what's next for you? I presume you have another book in mind?
Yes, I would like to put all the interviews I've done with veterans in one book. I've got so many of them, I don't know how I'm going to knock that down to a small, dull roar, but I want to do that. That's one of my goals, is to put all those interviews together. There's some people that may not be with us much longer, and I did want Harold Keel. His friend wrote Harold's Voyage, which was a World War II situation. He was on a ship in the Pacific Theater, and he came out with what we call now PTSD because of the kamikaze pilots coming at him all the time. But he got out of it by becoming a master woodworker. I mean, he is fantastic in what he can do with wood. So those are the kind of things I want to put in a new book.
Oh, I like that. Oh, maybe you can do like volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3 if you have that many.
That's a lot of work. I'm trying to get me in working.
I have the feeling that you're very energetic and that you kind of keep everything moving along pretty good.
Yeah, the book I wrote with my
Yeah.
drug.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Bobby.
Okay. Yeah, he has ADHD. So in order to make him keep going, I had to make him keep going. And he wanted to write the book himself. And all I did was do an outline for about 6 months before. And he didn't like my outline. So we just let him write the book, and I came along and fixed all the stuff that was wrong with it. I also interviewed 97 people. I mean, I interviewed cops, crooks, drug dealers, bikers, prostitutes, and a serial killer. I mean, it was pretty entertaining.
I'm speechless. You actually interviewed a serial killer to what? Add emphasis to certain parts of the story, or to?
No, one of Bobby's roommates was murdered by the serial killer. And I contacted the serial killer, who was in Monroe State Penitentiary over in Washington. Mm-hmm. And he says he's turned his life around, but he's still got those issues that you can feel in the background. So I kind of was careful how I dealt with him, but he told me things that I needed for the story, and he didn't know that the girl he killed wasn't the one he knew, and they were twins. So, and I got to meet the twin. Poor lady, she's such a sweetheart too. So it's interesting.
Oh, that's fascinating. And you interviewed other convicts that I guess were incarcerated when he was, and.
Well, yeah, there's one that Bobby'd been in prison for 16 years. I sent the book to the Philadelphia mob because he was in prison with 2 members of the Philly mob. And they liked the book, which I really appreciated. And I interviewed one guy, for example. Bobby kept telling me, this guy's really dangerous. Be careful what you say. He's really dangerous. The Dirty Dozen biker gang in Arizona had thrown him out because he was too violent, if that gives you any clue. And when I got there, I'm like praying the whole time. Holy crap, what am I going to do now? I get there, and he met me at the door on crutches. He had an injury, and there was no way he could outrun me. So, so I interviewed him. He was very nice and polite to me. And afterwards, I prayed with him, and he leaked little tears. It was really great. But it took me a couple minutes of panic when Bobby kept telling me he's dangerous, he's dangerous. Well, for the day I was there, he was not. Then he disappeared after that, and I have no idea where he went or what his phone number is anymore. So,
in interviewing these all the people who add to add the background for your book and everything, did they know that you had degrees in criminology or that you were on a police force? And
yeah, they did.
How did that help you?
It helped me with the police officers. I'm not sure it helped me much with the criminals. But the thing that with the criminals, the biggest good thing was they were afraid of Bobby. Bobby would have beat them up if they'd have hurt me. So God bless America. I'm glad they were scared of Bobby.
Oh, that's just fabulous. So anyway, that now is, how can we find that book? Is that
that one's on Amazon as well, and it's also on Kindle. Bobby Convict, School of Hard Knocks.
Okay, and then so that's Bobby's story, and he actually calls himself Bobby Convict.
Yes.
Because I read that and I thought, well, is that really the right title? And I need to learn more about this. So I'm really excited about reading this myself.
And it's got, we are the only book in America that I know of that used invisible ink in the book, in the print book. Doesn't have it in the Kindle, but in the print book, it's invisible ink. And the reason we did that is because in prison, convicts will use milk or urine or lemon juice to write secret messages on their letters. So we did that in the book, and instead of secret messages, we wrote encouraging things throughout the book in different places to encourage people. So that's how that ended up.
Now, when you say it's an invisible link, was it printed? Can the reader read these?
Yes, you can read the whole book, no problem. It's in black ink, just like normal. But you need an ultraviolet light to show the invisible messages.
Oh, I see. I've never heard of anything like that before.
We're the only one in America that I know of. There's one comic book in England that did that.
So you had to find a printer or that had the capability and would do that.
Yep, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Action Printers did it for us.
Really, right at home.
Yep.
That's amazing. Okay. Now, tell us a little bit about Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, and I guess tell us about Tank, and because I know a lot of the people who watch this show are a lot of Marines and vets, and they just love the Uncle Sam's Misguided Children.
Oh yeah, Tank is one of my best friends in the whole world. He's been so good to me. I don't think I've had many bosses over the years. I've had a lot of police chiefs, but I don't think I've had many bosses that treated me so much like a friend. He treats me like a friend, and he's been very good to me. He lives in Florida, just like you, and he has a little bulldog named Tank Jr. And I went down to visit him when I first started there. I had a ball. It was too hot. And thank you, no, I don't want to live in Florida. But it was fun. He took me to the beach. And he took me around to see the statue in Sarasota. It was very nice. I enjoyed myself.
So he's over on the west coast of Florida. I'm on the east coast. And but you live on a beautiful coastline yourself. I don't think people understand how beautiful Lake Coeur d'Alene is, and it's a fairly large lake as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 28 miles long, and it's so beautiful that I never tire of taking pictures of it because I just love the different things I can do with it. And then we live not far from Lake Pend Oreille, which is one of the deepest lakes in the United States. That's where the U.S. Navy has a training center for submarines at Bayview. So yeah deep.
Yeah, that's north of you, more up in that. I don't know if you'd call it a peninsula or that very.
It's the Panhandle. Yeah.
The Panhandle. That's what I was looking for, and that's what, about maybe 70 or 80 miles north of you.
45.
45. Okay. I'm just trying to remember, from when I was living there in Coeur d'Alene and working in that area where everything was. Yeah. And that's really beautiful country up there. And the lake, you mentioned it. I don't think people understand about the geography of America and how many beautiful places there are and how many unique places there are in America, because like Idaho in the northern panhandle is just mostly forest. It's just fantastic. And then there's Lake Coeur d'Alene. And then in southern Idaho, I've actually interviewed an author, Kirby Jonas, who's, when people see this, it won't be the same day, but we're recording this on his birthday. And he lives down more towards the desert part of Idaho, I think in Pocatello.
Yeah. The southern part of Idaho is mostly desert, although There's also a huge ski area down by Boise. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Sun Valley, I think, is the name of it, but I'm not sure. Starts with an S. And that's very treed and beautiful as well. But if you want to move to Idaho, please move to Boise.
Because there's too many people in Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene right now, and
the traffic is horrendous.
And you have the interstate runs right through there, Interstate 90, as I recall, and to the east of you is, like I said, is Kellogg, which was as I recall around 30 or so miles east, but you had to go across the 4th of July Pass to get there. And tell us a little bit about the history of that.
The history? 4th of July Pass is very, very nasty in the wintertime. It doesn't seem like it should be because it's about the same height as Snoqualmie Pass in Washington. But it's not, we're not in that snow belt, and yet 4th of July Pass is extremely dangerous. So it's kind of scary to go over there in the wintertime. In the summertime, not so bad. There's a lot of chain lakes over there. In the Silver Valley is what they call it. The Silver Valley is a mining area, as you well know. Bunker Hill Mine, Sunshine Mine, Hecla Mining, all of those mines that they came in the early 1900s to mine silver and lead and zinc, and Galena Mine and all of those. It was a thriving mining area until when they came in to clean it up, it went and it fell apart.
Yeah, I remember because when I was there, they were taking readings all the time of particulates in the air and everything. But on this 4th of July Pass, in order to get across that, I guess the pioneers tried to come across there, and I remember us driving on that, and there was black ice, and there were a lot of accidents, and also we used to see a lot of bears would walk right across the interstate, and people would stop and wait for them. So you're really in a very unique country, and now I know why you don't want more people to move in, because there's a lot of wildlife in the area that really needs to be protected as well.
I love wildlife. My husband sees moose all the time when he goes up in the woods, and they run ahead of the car. And I've seen deer and elk and all of those things. I love that. But the more people that come here, the harder that is to preserve. So
yeah, it's getting that way throughout America. The more we build up, the more we move the wildlife and displace them from one area to another, and then pretty soon people are wondering why there's a coyote in their backyard, for example.
Yeah. Well, a few years back when we moved here, there was a moose couple, Mr. and Mrs. Moose, that came into our neighborhood and would eat the plants and chow down on the hedges. And I miss them, but somebody from California got mad and had the wildlife people remove them. I miss them. They used to stand in the sprinklers, when it's hot. They were just cute.
It's an America I wish that we had more of today, and I wish more people could understand it and and realize what we're really missing when we're building these huge mega cities and mega apartment buildings, multi-story buildings and everything. So I really I'm envious of you living there. I wish I was there again.
Well, our climate's a lot easier to deal with than yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. I love it here. I don't want to ever leave.
Okay. So you're gonna stay in Idaho, and you're gonna continue to write for Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, and write a book about your veterans interviews, and anything else you want to tell us before we
pull the plug.
Yeah. I was trying to find the right word, but I lost my.
Sorry, I'm very colloquial. I don't. I just have to say it the way I
Well,
think.
we only have so much time. I could sit and talk with you all day about this, and I'm just hoping that we get everything in.
Yeah, I would. There's only one thing. There's things on my heart to see the state of America right now that breaks my heart. Having grown up in North Idaho and seeing, what we used to have and the way people are now, it makes my heart sick. I mean, people are not listening to reason. They're angry all the time, and it's sad. For me, I just find it sad because I love my country. I have ancestors that fought the Revolutionary War. I have ancestors that fought in different wars throughout time, and I'm really sad for what's going on.
Yes, I think myself and all of our viewers feel exactly the same way. So, Faye, it's just been a wonderful opportunity for all of us to get to know you and get to know about your work and your story. And hopefully we'll get people starting to read more books, and we want them to read your books.
And there's also our publishing company, Bitterroot, has books for veterans on it. Veterans that suffer from PTSD. There's a book. You can go to our media website and you can see that. So there's different things all over our publishing company for everybody that likes different things. We have different kinds of books, and go for it. Make them read.
Okay, very good. So, Faye, thank you so much for being a guest on the American Vision, and God bless you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Okay, boys and girls, thanks for watching our show today, and be sure to get Faye Higbee's books and read her articles on Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. And God bless you all for watching. God bless our vets and our active duty personnel. And God save our America. We need you now more than ever before.